This is a Willets Point Shea Stadium bound 7 express train. The next and last stop is Willets Point, Shea Stadium.
Oh, yes, it is the Subway to Shea podcast. Anthony Rivera here with you, talking about all the news and happenings surrounding that team from Queens, the New York Mets. Episode 159 from the Subway to Shea studios in my office. Make sure you like this video. Make sure you're subscribing on YouTube as well as Apple Podcasts and Spotify if you like to listen instead. You can also follow Subway to Shea on X, Instagram, and TikTok at Subway to Shea. And you can follow me on X at Ant Rivera 86. Now, second week I've been doing this on a Sunday, and I think this might be the permanent home of the Subway to Shea podcast here, Sunday nights, 9 p.m. live. And then you can listen during the week on the Apple Podcast and the Spotify as well. But I think we found a permanent home here, 9 p.m. live with you guys. We got 27 people in the room right now. Shout out to all of you in the chat. I saw Brad in here earlier, Maureen, my guy Yuki Matsui as well in here. Shout out to all of you guys. Make sure you bring it in the comments. Make sure questions, anything you got for me. We'll be talking about a lot of stuff today. Obviously, the Mets did not win the final game of the homestand against the Cincinnati Reds, but it was a very productive homestand going 5-1. So a lot of stuff happening with the New York Mets getting back in the wild card hunt, now tied with the Atlanta Braves for that third spot because the Braves won against Toronto on Sunday. They couldn't help us out, but here to join me to break it all down, long time, good time friend, Jake Brown, host of the Sick podcast Mets Magic. Follow him on X at Jake Brown Radio, as well as at Sick Pod Mets. Jake, my friend, it's been a while. How you doing?
Yeah, it's a different world for me now. It's very interesting artwork. I'm in Philadelphia, which I've only been to a handful of times in my life. My dad started working here, so I'm staying here for now. We'll see how long. It's an interesting area. A lot of homeless people outside. The food is nowhere near as good as New York. I miss New York. I miss the food, and I miss Citi Field. Man, this week was electric at the ballpark, and not being there, I had a serious case of FOMO, walk-offs, wins, and just overall good vibes. I'm hoping my friend who works here got me the hockey jersey, which I assume you got your hands on.
I did. I'm a big hockey fan, so I had to get my hands on this year's hockey jersey. I got last year's as well, and you remember we talked about, I think on your podcast, them not having like the proper sizes for these shirts. And I think the hockey, for me at least, the hockey jerseys are a little bit different. They fit nice and well. And it was pretty cold out on Saturday. So
it is still a large though. I think it's a large, but they somehow fit because they do fit me usually. It's the shirts that are usually tighter. Now the OMG shirt was an extra large. So now my mind is just blown. I don't know what size you're getting, but the OMG was an extra large. So maybe that was like a Jose Iglesias personal request to not fat shame. And yeah, there's something with the hockey jerseys that they're made a little bit bigger because it did fit. And the large Mercury Mets jersey also kind of fit me. So that's sizing is a major mystery here. What kind of sizing? Because listen, I've gotten sizing from like China sites that say like 4XL and it barely fits me. So I don't know where this Mets sizing comes from.
I got to check like who are the manufacturers here, because right, the hockey jerseys fit as a large, and so did the Mets Mercury jersey. I didn't try the football one on. I got that one as well, but I did wear the soccer jersey to one of the games, and boy, was that tight. And it's a large.
The football jersey fits well because I wore it on my podcast with Tim Healy the other day, and it's a good fit. And it's kind of cool. It's like an orange jersey. I feel like a Florida Gator. My first CBS podcast was with a Florida Gator, Ben Troop, an All-American tight end. And it felt like I was one of them and I was playing football, even though I can't.
So you're in Philly now, which means are you going to get out there this weekend for the big series against the Phillies?
Yeah, my parents don't really want to go. And I said, it is a requirement that I go. One, I've never been to that ballpark. Two, it's the only time in my life I'm living in Philly, so I have to go. Tickets are a little pricey, and it's not like the Mets and Citi Field. I don't have connections here. I'm like texting Philly friends. I'm like, you got any ticket connects? Like $80, $100 to get in. So I will go at least Saturday. So if anyone is in here going Saturday, let me know. I'll say hello, and maybe I'll go Friday too. But for now, I am going Saturday.
Yeah, I'm shocked you haven't been to Citizens Bank yet. It's a nice stadium. It's a little bit small, but it is a nice ballpark, and the Mets usually hit well there, and they're going to need to hit well this weekend because they are in the thick of this hunt. And look, to me, home sweet homestand. I mean, they went 5-1. Obviously, the loss on Sunday stings because they couldn't hit, and the bullpen, which has been great in that whole 9-game winning streak. Can you believe this? And I was shocked at this. The Mets have been on this 9-game winning streak before they lost to Cincinnati. It's the longest winning streak since 2018. And we're talking about Mickey Callaway's New York Mets. We're talking all the way back to that start of the season where they won 9 games in that short span, I think in April. That was the last time they won 9 games in a row. We're not even talking about that 2022 team that won over 100 games. That was the first time. I was shocked when I heard that.
Yeah, it is shocking, but you also got to remember they sprinkle in those blown saves, and Edwin Diaz has been a big part of it. Think of it. Mets really could have made this an 11-game win streak if he doesn't blow those. They could have won 13 out of 4. Like, the streak would have been crazy. They would be up a few games right now. But you got to factor in the fact that they find ways to blow games from the bullpen. So luckily during this 9-game streak, they didn't. They had some walk-off magic. You know, they got help with playing 3 against the worst team in the history of the sport in the White Sox. That'll always help you, but it was a good run. You know, today is unfortunate, but you can't really lose too much sleep. They were due to lose a game. They got it out of the way. They scored only 1 run. And listen, the argument for me, if you want to nitpick something, and Carlos Mendoza, there hasn't been much to nitpick. Wow, that is a tongue twister. Nitpick. Is that you should have used Phil Maytone in a 4-0 game on Saturday and saved Edwin Diaz for the 1-1 game on Sunday. So that would be what I would say. Should have done this, but in the end, when you only score 1 run and you can't get guys home against the Cincinnati Reds, you don't deserve to win.
No, they had ample opportunities during the game to score runs. Even after the Starling Marte RBI single, they had an opportunity to score runs, and they're just not taking advantage of those opportunities. And when that happens, the other team feasts and starts scoring runs. But they went 5-1, swept Boston, took 2 out of 3 from Cincinnati. What were your biggest takeaways from this whole homestand?
Well, the Mark Vientos thirst trap season. It was him getting the jersey off. Apparently, I didn't research because I didn't zoom in on Mark Vientos shirtless pictures like I'm sure a lot of girls did. Is that he had like Hebrew tattoo? That was a big observation. Do you know the bottom of this story? What was on his chest of the tattoo?
I don't know off the top of my head. I did read it real quick, but I don't remember. But I know it was Hebrew. And I just don't remember what it said on there. If anyone knows in the chat, put it in there because I can't remember off the top. You know what? I'm going to search for it while we're doing this right now.
Yeah, while I answer this question seriously, you search for the jokingly answer. But, the starting pitching, just absolutely remarkable. And just the pitching overall this week continues to dazzle. I mean, David Peterson, if he had started the season in April, he's arguably a Cy Young candidate. Unfortunately, he missed the first 6 or 7 weeks. Jose Quintana picks up his 100th win, first Colombian pitcher to win 100 games in the history of the sport. That was a cool little stat to see. And he's really bounced back. He's the guy who at one point we were like, get him out of this damn rotation.
Twice.
And now, a couple of times
season,
we're like, your back is against the wall, Jose, and hip, hip, Jose. He has really taken advantage. Clutch hits, some timely hits, but really that walk-off was special on Friday night. And Saturday the shutout. There were a lot of good moments from this homestand. The walk-off stands out most to me, and the great pitching.
Yeah, so I found the translation. Ben Yule on Twitter posted it. It says, "Do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your requests to God." That's
that's the Hebrew
4:6.
It's the Hebrew. Is Mark Vientos one of me? Is he Jewish?
I don't know. Maybe. We'll have to dive deeper into that at some point.
Yeah, this is essential information because we might have to get Mark Vientos Katz Deli pastrami at some point if he's part of the Jew crew. But yeah, that was very intriguing. And Mark Vientos, that's the story. I mean, this guy could hit 30 ding dongs this season and wasn't even on the roster to start the year. I mean,
Yeah.
it's unbelievable. Mark Vientos, the player he's become, he was pissed off beginning of the year not being on the roster. He works his way on. Brett Beatty is going to get traded. Brett Beatty has no future with the New York Mets. I'm sorry. If you like him, too bad. He's gone. And Mark Vientos is that guy, whether it's at third base, whether you move him first if you don't bring back Alonso, or whether he replaces JD as a DH if you don't bring back JD. Mark Vientos has to be in the lineup next season, and he really continues to come up with big hits and particularly home runs. I mean, 25 homers when he didn't play part of the year and potentially finishing with 30. It's pretty remarkable, and he's a part of the Mets' future. And this was a guy that we thought was part of a Mets trade of any sort. You did not expect Mark Vientos to be part of the future. Well, now he's got to be part of the future.
Yeah, and he was kind of like the third forgotten man, or maybe even fourth if you want to count Ronnie Mauricio as well, of the Mets babies or the baby Mets or whatever you want to call them. But he's grown up before our eyes and pretty quickly. You look at Francisco Alvarez, who's kind of take a step back offensively. I don't know if it's injuries. I don't know if he's just struggling hitting. I know Eric Chavez mentioned that in some article that was written in Newsday. I think Tim Healy wrote it, if I'm for certain. But he has struggled offensively. Brett Beatty is just, I don't know. He's coming off as a quadruple A player, right? I mean, he's hitting in before he got hurt, he was hitting pretty well in triple A, but he just can't hit up here. And his defense is not even enough to warrant him staying on the roster. And now you got a guy like Mark Vientos, who in the offseason, I don't know if you remember, but we saw him before spring training even started with Francisco Lindor in Puerto Rico, and they were training at third base. They were taking grounders. He was teaching him how to play the infield, and he's been pretty solid at third base. I think that gets lost with all the power numbers and everything, is how well, and we saw some of it today with some of his defensive plays. But you look at the 2024 season so far, 284 batting average, 24 homers, 62 RBIs, and an 893 OPS. I think he leads all third basemen. That includes J-Ram. That includes Devers. He is at the top of the list as one of the best third basemen in the league right now. And the Mets have a good opportunity with him because next year, whether Pete Alonso stays or goes, obviously he can move to first base. He could stay at third base. And if JD Martinez leaves, he could DH. So there's so much versatility when it comes to a guy like Mark Vientos. I'm very excited to see where this goes moving forward. Obviously, there could be a sophomore slump or anything like that, but he has been steady all season. He's not let any type of slump affect him at all. He's done so well. I'm very impressed.
Yeah, he's also got 2 more pre-arbitration eligible years, which means you're going to get him pretty much dirt cheap the next 2 years. And if he's a starter hitting nearly 30 homers and you're paying him around $1 million, I mean, it's Happy Meal prices for an everyday player that, that would get 20, 25 million in the open market. So you're getting a deal out of him and you got to love it. And this was a guy who came in and last year and maybe coming to this year was a little bit arrogant, did not have a good attitude, was a little bit cocky, was a little bit full of himself. And he shouldn't have been because he didn't do anything in the big leagues. He had an occasional homer. He wasn't a good defensive player, but he's kind of used that arrogance and that cockiness and turned it into confidence. And you're seeing that in the field. You're seeing in the field, like you said, he's been good, but he's been good lately. Like he started off, he was making some bad errors earlier in this season. Now lately, if he's not making a play, he's at least knocking it down. You saw that today where he made a diving play. He didn't throw the guy out, but he kept the ball in the infield and he kept the runner that was getting a second from going to third. And those kind of plays in a playoff push make a major difference. Unfortunately, the Mets offense couldn't do anything today, but that ended up being what would have been a big play if the Mets offense could have done something. So Mark Vientos, cheap, confident, and a part of the future.
And I think the fact that Francisco Lindor is right next to him helps the situation out and has kind of been like that big brother to him. They are basically, and I posted this on X the other day, they are Batman and Robin in the lineup together. Anytime now I see Brandon Nimmo bat second, I start getting frustrated because I like the 1-2 punch of Francisco Lindor and as well Mark Vientos. And I got some comments here in the chat. I want to get to 122 of you in the room. Appreciate you all. Carlos Ramos in here saying Mark Vientos is our future first baseman / DH. Jake, you can book that. What are your thoughts on the whole situation with Pete Alonso? And it's funny because Friday night I was a little nervous that he would come up in a big situation. Mark Vientos basically said, no, I'm taking care of business and we're going home. I'm ending this game. So he hit the 2-run home run. But Pete Alonso has really struggled this year in big opportunities, runners in scoring position, bases loaded. You've got some fans already, Carlos himself, ready to move on from Pete and ready to anoint Mark Vientos as the first baseman.
Yeah, I'm not ready to move Mark to first. I don't think he would be good defensively at first base at all. There's certain traits, and when I've seen him play first in the limited time he has, he wasn't good. I don't see him being good scooping balls, extending. He's just not that versatile defensively. But I'm ready to move. I mean, I've told you this. I've been ready to move on from Pete Alonso. I think Vientos is either your DH or your third baseman. I think your first baseman is going to be someone probably in the open market like a Christian Walker. I've always wanted Christian Walker. I think next year, first base Christian Walker, third base Mark Vientos, or third base Ronnie Mauricio, DH Mark Vientos. I think Ronnie Mauricio is going to be a starter on this team next season. So you're going to see youth. You're going to see Mauricio. You're going to see Vientos. We'll see Jeff McNeil. I mean, if they can get some pieces in a trade, I think you trade Jeff McNeil. If not, maybe he's your second baseman, at least for the first half of next year. And then Lindor, and, that's not a bad infield. If you could have Walker at first, Alvarez behind the plate, maybe you bring back Torrens. I mean, it's unbelievable how many guys he's thrown out.
Maybe. He's got to come back. With all the runners he throws out at second, even said today, how are you still running on this guy? Ellie De La Cruz, who has does he have like 6? How many stolen bases does Ellie De La Cruz have?
He's around 60, I believe.
Right?
Yeah.
He's got around 60, and he couldn't even get off of Torrens. That has been one of the best trades that was made by David Stearns. You could talk about some of the other stuff there, but the Torrens, how we got Torrens from the Yankees, who needed a catcher at that time, Torrens has been outstanding.
Yeah, and Stearns has just been outside of Joey Wendell, who we almost forget about now, and Jake Diekman. He's hit a home run almost on everything. So that's why I trust him. And that's why I trust that he's not going to overpay Pete Alonso. He is, he comes from Milwaukee. He's not the kind of guy that's going to throw Pete Alonso $150 million. He's worked with Scott Boras plenty of times. He's not going to cave in. They're going to give Pete Alonso an offer, and deservedly so. But I don't know. I talked with this about Tim Healy on Mets Magic the other day, and he thought I was, he said 5 years, 125 is fair and something the Mets would give. I said I wouldn't go there. He seemed to think low ball when I said 3 years, 75. I don't know if I would go to 5, 125. I think it's a fair price. I just don't know. I want Pete Alonso in the Mets 5 more years. He's not a captain. Like, they haven't really won anything with him. He's been good. He's given us a lot of moments, but I think you just move on from that era and you go in a different direction. If he comes back, fine. I'm not going to be mad. I mean, listen, he's been remarkable for the most part, but man, his ability to not hit in the clutch, his inability to hit in the clutch has been so infuriating to watch, to the point the broadcast said you have to walk Vientos to face Alonso. I mean, what world are we in? That shows you how bad he's been. It's let's walk Vientos and put 2 guys on base to face Pete Alonso because he'll probably strike out or ground to a double play. Like, that's where we've got with him. And that's not where you should be with your franchise first baseman that you're going to potentially give a long-term deal, which is why I wouldn't give it to him.
I actually thought that the 5, 125, was it 125 you said? 5, 125?
That's what Tim said. I mean, that's no rumors. It's just a number we threw out there. Yeah.
See, I think that is a fair deal for Pete. I mean, would be 34, 35 at the end of that contract. But I am concerned with what I'm seeing with his bat. It feels a little slow. It feels a little sluggish. Now, he's never not always not been I mean, he's been clutch in past years. And remember, the whole talk was we got to get people around Pete Alonso. We got to get, someone to back him up, another power hitter. Well, they get JD Martinez, and it's like, does Pete now not need someone because he's not coming up in these big spots at all? And it stinks to see that from him, as well as a guy like Brandon Nimmo, who's been pretty much absent since the All-Star break. And you look at Francisco Lindor, who's pretty much been in charge of this team and leading not only on the field, but at the plate, to the point where, we're talking about MVP type play from him. This weekend, he was 1 for 12, and still there was no one showing up to back him up. No one, carrying the team. Pete wasn't there. Nimmo wasn't there. You needed guys like JD Martinez and Harrison Bader, who's been pretty much clutch most of this. I know he's had his struggles. We know what we're getting with the Harrison Bader, but the dude's been clutch all season. I am a little concerned with that aspect of this team, that if Francisco Lindor goes into some type of slump here, that we're not seeing any adjustments being made by Brandon Nimmo and Pete Alonso.
Yeah, and Nimmo is here for a long while, so this isn't like, oh, Alonso a couple weeks. Nimmo is here for the long haul, and there was talk of maybe he's the captain. Well, I think that's out the window. I mean, captain's not going to happen. It seems like the Mets and in baseball, it's just not a thing. But Brandon Nimmo has to step up, man. And the occasional walk, the occasional foul home run. I mean, he had like 3 foul home runs this week. It's unbelievable. He's been inches away from a home run. And think how big that would have been today. Mets maybe win the game if that ball's out of here. So I don't know what he needs to adjust. I mean, this is something on Chavez and the coaching staff. Like, they got to get this right. They got to get him right. I don't know. With him, it seems to be mental sometimes. Like, he is the kind of guy it gets in his head, and you can see that, and just the way he, talks after games, and it's a mental thing with him, because we know he has the ability to hit the baseball and hit 280, hit 300, whatever it is. So I think there's something in his head, and you never know what's going on at home, what's happening there. Maybe it's something there. Doesn't he have a kid on the way? Or does Brandon Nimmo have a kid on the way? Yeah, he does. So, there's always things behind the scenes that us fans don't realize. Up late, wife's not feeling well, kid on the way. He's got that in the back of his mind. What does he want to name the kid? Blah, blah, blah. Like, there's personal things at home that go on. And it seems to be a mental thing with Brandon Nimmo, because we've seen him have enough success in the big leagues. And you're right. Like, Lindor at some point, and he already is, this weekend, he cooled down a lot. He's going to cool down. He can't stay hot forever. And these other guys have to step up. And, there's other guys like Starling Marte. He had a big hit today, but he's got to step up. Francisco Alvarez, he's got to step up from the bottom of the lineup. They got to get production from those bottom of the lineup guys. You get Bader here and there. He was in a slump. But Alvarez, like, where is he? Like, I want to keep calling him our franchise catcher. You love the moxie, the swagger, what he does for the pitching staff. But you can't be this bad of a hitter. You got to be a better hitter. You can't give us the occasional walk-off here and there, once a year, twice a year, once a year moments. Like, Alvarez these next few weeks has got to, pick up his cojones and deliver for the Mets from the bottom of that order. So if you're not going to get it from Nimmo and the top of the order, you got to get it from the bottom.
The hard thing for me, though, is putting that much pressure on our second-year catcher. He's already been through so much already with the injury to the shoulder, the injury to the hand. He's controlling the pitching staff. You got veterans here in Brandon Nimmo and Pete Alonso that, they're supposed to be the guys. They've been here for years. This is their opportunity to get into the postseason. And they're not living up to their part of the expectations. Carlos Ramos saying that, to be fair, that he's just slumping. But this is a lot. We're talking about from the trade deadline. He's been slumping. This is like a month or two.
Yeah, it's too long of a slump.
Too long.
Yeah, I mean, the overall numbers are solid, because he had an all-time great stretch for like a month, 6 weeks, whatever the time stretch was. But like, from the All-Star break to now, to be this bad in crunch time, the numbers may look good, but it's fool's gold. Those numbers are fool's gold. And, these next couple of weeks are statement times for the big boys. Like, the big boys have to step it up. And like I said, Nimmo is here for the long haul. So fans will remember these next couple of weeks from him. If they miss out on the playoffs because he can't hit a lick, the Mets are going to remember that going into next year.
Yeah, Nimmo is one of those guys that he's on and off, hot, slump. But this is something. I feel like this is something totally different. I don't know if he is dealing with any type of injury. We know that a couple of times when he's swung, he's turned, and they had to take him out of games, and he comes back the next day. So I don't know if he's dealing with something that's nagging. We probably won't find out until the end of the season. But man, if we could just get even that couple of week span that we got from Nimmo, where it was just Lindor and Nimmo basically running the offense, maybe that could turn things around. And you even look at Pete's numbers. If you looked at Pete's numbers without understanding this season, outsider's perspective, right? You'd be like, man, those are some solid numbers, right? 30 home runs, almost close to 80, 90 RBIs. But you look in depth, and he just hasn't been coming up clutch. I know that his batting average with runners in scoring position, as well as with the bases loaded, is way under the Mendoza line, which is not good. Not good for a power hitter. Not good for, what was initially deemed this contract year that would get him Judge type money. Remember all that talk? Yeah, that's definitely not happening. I know there's a lot of discourse in the chat about, what to give Pete. I know Shea Parking Lot agreed with you. He liked the 375 thing. So maybe that's something that eventually happens. Maybe Pete has to get a year back, and do a 1 or 2 year type deal and figure this stuff out. But a lot of people saying who they would bring in there. Paul Goldschmidt was talked about, Christian Walker. Someone said wait until 2026 for Vladdy Guerrero. So we'll see how the Mets handle this in the offseason. But we really need him right now. He's not getting right. Like the whole talk about trading him, that's all done with. We're going to free agency with him. The Mets need him right now. The Mets need him for the rest of this stretch. And if he wants to increase his value, because he could easily do that from here until the postseason. And if he has a big postseason like Daniel Murphy did, that ups the value on his contract. And if he can do that, that'd be big time for him. So he's got to help himself, but he also has to help the Mets.
Yeah, I'm looking at the chat now. To 3 for 75, it's a pipe dream. It's not going to happen with who his agent is. And then Christian Walker, I see the comment about his age. Christian Walker is a 2-year deal kind of guy. Christian Walker is not getting a long-term deal. So I'm not saying he's the long-term solution, but for a 2-year, $30 million deal, Christian Walker would be fantastic. But yeah, like you're right. Like if you look at, Pete Alonso's numbers and you're a box score watcher and you didn't watch the game, you say it's a solid season. But if you've watched his whole career and you watch, 90 whatever percent of the games like we do, we watch almost every game every night. This is not him. It's just not him, and it's not what his career has looked like. And the frustration you see, like that's a carryover with the other guys. Like what and I don't think this should get overlooked. Like Francisco Lindor, he grounds into a ground out, double play, whatever. He's not throwing a bat. It's an even temper tantrum. Like you can't have that in a clubhouse where guys are absolutely losing their mind. There's a reason Jeff McNeil, they're not touching him if he gets out. They're not hitting his back because he might hit him back in the face. And that kind of attitude, there's a carryover effect into the clubhouse. And that's why, I don't know, a lot of the body language of Pete, the inability to hit in the clutch, it's just be very careful when you're dealing this off season and don't, I trust management. David Stearns, I really trust this regime to get it right. That even though they got Steve Cohen's money, it doesn't mean they're going to throw their money at anyone. They might throw it all to Juan Soto if he would come here, but you're not throwing it all to the wrong guy. And I'm not saying Pete's the wrong guy, but with his agent, with his age, with this season, be careful.
Is it safe to say, looking at all the moves David Stearns, and I'm talking from the beginning of his tenure here till now, that he's been about 80-20 right or 85-15 right? I mean, he's been pretty on point to the fact that, this team is still in the hunt and tied for a wild card spot. what are they, like 10 games over 500 now? Carlos Mendoza, even the move to bring in Carlos Mendoza has really been an important piece to this team. So I got to give him kudos for the job he's done. Job well done.
Yeah, I think it's probably 85 now. DJ Stewart, he was signed by the pass regime, right? Didn't that happen either during the season they extended him or like before Stearns got here? I don't remember the time.
No, it was definitely in the offseason, but I
don't
they
feel
really
Stearns is dumb enough to sign.
I'm trying to figure out if it was done before Epler left, because Epler didn't leave right away. He was still here for a couple of weeks, and I wasn't sure if they got him during that time. Definitely off of the 2 weeks that he had in August, where he kind of was carrying the offense. And, once I saw him fizzle out in September, I was like, we really shouldn't be going back to the well on this, but they did. And look,
it was February 2nd, February. I'm trying to find the date that we gotta look into this. So this is the one mystery with David Stearns is, why do they keep calling this guy up? I get he's a left-hand hitter, but he provides nothing else. He doesn't play defense. He can't run the bases. He walks occasionally. He's the threat of power. Tell me when the last time DJ Stewart hit a home run. I don't even know the date. Someone in the chat, let us know what date was DJ Stewart's last home run. Because what threat of power is he if he doesn't actually hit for power? There's a threat. There's all these threats. There's a lot of threats out there, but he doesn't do anything. So I just don't get why. Like, they keep calling him up, and someone argued that they have a backup infielder, pinch runner in Reyes already. Okay, that's fine. And I get Acuna won't play. The minor league season is about to end. It doesn't matter if he's going to rot on the bench, considering their season's over. He's gotten the whole season there. I just don't get it. It looked like it was November 18th. I just Googled when they got him. So I guess that was the David Stearns first couple of weeks, I would assume. So it is under David Stearns, correct?
Yeah. And the whole talk with bringing up DJ Stewart leads to the next topic we're going to get into, and that's, Jeff McNeil being out for the season. Kind of also leads into the whole talk about, the clubhouse, and we've known Jeff McNeil to be one of those hothead type of guys, but Jeff really kind of held this team as we came back from the All-Star break. He was starting to hit for power, and he was one of the only run sources for about a good week or two to keep this team afloat here. And, he ends his season batting .238, 12 homers, 44 RBIs, 5 stolen bases, 692 OPS. Not what you want to see, right? Because he was the batting champ. And if he's not batting .300, it's not like he's providing much unless he hits for power, which he started to do, in the later half of the season. Fractures his wrist. He's done. Wouldn't be back unless they had a deep run into the playoffs. So we might not see Jeff McNeil. And I don't really know his status moving forward. A lot of people, even I thought once he got hurt, I was like, man, this really sucks, especially since, he started hitting for power and he was, providing a little bit. But is this good for the clubhouse? Is it a little different to have him not be a part of this? I don't know. I don't know where you stand on Jeff McNeil right now.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it stinks because they have no room for error now. If anyone else gets hurt, they don't really have any backups. But listen, Candelita is the big reason the Mets are here, and he's going to play every day. He's going to take his spot. And basically, the guys that are there are going to play every day. Like, this is crunch time. Do not start a guy like DJ Stewart. Do not start a Reyes. These guys need to play every day, and they don't get a day off. So what? Like, you're going to have a day off on Thursday. There's your day off. Like, these guys got to go out there every day. Unfortunately, if anyone goes down or you want to pinch it, there's not many options, and that's where their issue is here. It does stink for Jeff. He was, hitting better. I would have liked to see him down the stretch here. I think having his bat would have helped. I don't think this is a crushing injury for the Mets and ruins their chances. Everyone's got to step up. Like we keep saying, those big boppers, the big boys have to be able to hit. This is crunch time. It's their time. And I don't think it helps them that he's out. But I do think, after, a ground out from Jose Iglesias, he goes back to the dugout where McNeil might, throw a bat. So maybe there's a little more Goose Fraba in the clubhouse and a little more Zen in the clubhouse and a little more Phil Jackson in a Montana mountain in the clubhouse. But, I don't think this is a crushing blow.
Yeah, and they bring up DJ Stewart. You talked about Acuna. Blunt thoughts here, Hector, who's kind of been like a celebrity all over SNY now. He's hanging out with Sean Manaea. He says that, maybe when the minor league season ends, they bring up Acuna, which is a possibility. I'm just shocked. Like it wasn't Acuna. Also, it wasn't Drew Gilbert who was hitting hot, but obviously we have all the outfielders right now, so I guess that makes sense. Guy like Luke Ritter as well. I mean, there's so many options instead of having just DJ Stewart, Daniel Vogelback at the plate.
Yeah, they seem to not like Acuna, or they just are worried about him at the big league level, this early. Because I don't understand if he won't have a chance to play. Like he's not going to play. Blah blah. DJ Stewart's not going to play, nor should he play. Like pinch hitting him today was ridiculous. The first pitch he saw was high, and he swung at it. Like what is with guys coming off the bench and swinging at the first pitch? Like it's so bizarre to me. Like it's a terrible approach. I just do not get it. And Sean Manaea, you mentioned, I guess Blunt Thoughts was with him. I talked to him at the Hank Azaria charity event. The guy is just the coolest mother effer, like just a cool dude. The swaggiest jacket he wore to this event. He has brought such an aura to this team. And you want to talk about guys in the offseason you got to try and bring back. He is one. And your hope it's not a one-year wonder, but Sean Manaea has had a good career and his stuff has really been good. If you're going to overpay someone, to be honest, I'd rather overpay Sean Manaea than Pete Alonso. I really like what Manaea brings. I like what he brings to the clubhouse. Even today, like the rally cap, I saw that and thought they might come back and win just because I saw Sean Manaea wearing a rally cap. I was like, they're going to win because Sean Manaea is that cool and wearing the rally cap. He's been a big part of the team. I really do like Sean Manaea. But on the Stewart front, yeah, I mean, maybe in a week something changes here. Maybe they're just waiting for the minor league season to wrap up in the next week or two, and they want Acuna to get every at bat possible. But I just like the aspect of have a late game pinch runner. You need a stolen base, you put him in the ball game. I think he brings a lot, and I bet they're regretting getting rid of a guy like Ben Gamel right now. Ben Gamel is doing great with the Astros. Gamel, I think, could be a very intriguing piece here. I'd rather have Gamel than DJ Stewart. Gamel's better defensively. Gamel could steal bases. Gamel's a better hitter. And guess what? He's your favorite thing. He's a lefty. There's your left-hand hitter. So that's one guy you look at that they got rid of that you think, maybe we should have tried to keep Ben Gamel around.
Yeah, not to the same extent, but DJ Stewart is kind of getting that Daniel Vogelback treatment right now, where it's like, why aren't they just letting this dude go already? It didn't work out. It's okay. We know it didn't work out, but like for some reason, they still want to hold on to him. So look, we'll see what happens when it comes to that front and what they do in the next couple weeks.
And I love that if they miss the playoffs, we're going to be like, it's DJ Stewart's fault. It's obviously not. There's other things like this isn't the most important thing. I know some people are tweeting like, oh, just leave him alone, blah, blah, blah. But like, it's just frustrating because when you look at teams making the playoffs, get 1 through 26, 1 through 20, every roster spot does matter. And there is a spot where the 26th, 27th guy on the roster can play a big factor. And it just frustrates you that they keep trotting the same guy out there. Do something different. Because you never know. It could be the final week. You got, say Alvarez is at first. You need a pinch runner. You put Acuna in there. He steals second. He steals third. You get a sac fly, tie game. Like, it's one of those moments that you have that guy, and you're like, wow, what a great move we made by making this guy our last guy on the roster and not rot away DJ Stewart.
Yeah. Yeah, I 100% agree. And he there's no need for him to play in the outfield. We got a whole bunch of outfielders right now. He's not even that great playing the outfield either. He has no speed. He's not hitting. So it's like, it's just another guy that he's just taking space up on the rock. He's just sitting at the corner of the bench, not providing anything right now. And watch, look, he'll like hit a home run or something now that I
We've
said
spent too much time on DJ Stewart. Let's move on.
We have. We're going to move on to the pitching because a lot of people want to comment in on Sean Manaea and what to do with him when the free agency. I know G Money Stacks is talking what happens, what's the next move once he opts out of his contract, and I think he will be doing that. We're going to get to that shortly. Also, Blunt Thought saying, I agree, Jake. Manaea is super cool. I had another player tell me that Manaea has been huge in the clubhouse, keeps everything loose. Here's the question from G Money Stacks about what's next. And look, I'm in agreement with you. And here's the thing for me. I want players that can play here. Sean Manaea has proven that through this season. He's had a big season for this Mets team. And it's not like it's a one-off. He had a pretty good season in San Francisco once he turned everything around with Driveline and you know, doing all that stuff with them. And I would totally be in for bringing Sean Manaea back for, you know, whatever the deal is that they want to bring him out, even if they overpay a little bit, because this rotation is basically just Kodai Senga and probably David Peterson at this moment in time. But you bring a guy like Sean Manaea back, I would even consider bringing Luis Severino back, honestly. I really wanted to bring him here in the offseason when we came into this season. They signed him. He's had a good year. And he just feeds off the energy in New York. He loves pitching here, whether it was in the Yankees, even though he struggled, but he was once considered, you know, a Cy Young type candidate there. So what he's done here, especially on Sunday, they blew the game anyway, but he pitched well, and he's pitched well most of the season. So I would consider bringing both of them back if it was up to me.
Yeah, I mean, you got to offer them both a deal. I'd be a little surprised if they're able to bring both back because I think both are going to command 4, maybe 5-year deals. So I think Sean Manaea probably going to be somewhere, 4 years, 80, 4 years, 72.
I'm good with that.
I think that's the kind of deal he's probably going to get. Severino, you know, it's a tough call. You know, could this be a 1-year wonder for Severino? I know he's had, you know, obviously plenty of success with the Yankees last year. He was one of the worst pitchers in baseball, but could he go back to his old ways next year? You know, I think he's changed, and he's talked about changing his habits and his life habits, his sleeping habits. He doesn't look at the phone late at night, doesn't look at the computer. You know, he talked to his sleep doctor. He changed a lot of how he lives, and some of your lifestyle changes do make a big difference on the mound, and that's proved true for Luis Severino. I just don't know if they're going to give, all right, here's 4 years, 80 for you. Here's 4 years, 80 for you. And that's $40 million, you know, to those two pitchers. You know, Sanga's what, 15, 18. That's almost $60 million to 3. And then you got room to pay one more guy. So that's why it's hard for me to believe they're going to do both. My preference is Sean Manaea. You pair him with David Peterson. You got your 2 lefties. You got Senga. Maybe Christian Scott's your 4th guy, and then you get someone else in free agency or a trade. So I like having 2 lefties in the rotation to mix with 3 righties. I don't know why. I just like 3 righties, 2 lefties. I think it's good. You mix and match lineups, some lefty-heavy lineups. I think it's smart to have 2 lefties in your rotation. But that's what I'm looking at. Something 480, maybe that's even low ball. Maybe he gets 4 for 100 or 5 for 100. But $20 million a year is probably what I would think he would get, considering his opt-out is what, 13 to 14. He's going to get more than that. He'll probably get closer to 20. And if I'm the Mets, I would offer it to him.
Carlos Ramos saying Sean Manaea and Luis Severino have earned coming back here. David Smith saying having a very rich owner allows these type of moves to happen. And look, I think the fact that I want to bring back both of them is because I don't really know how much confidence I have in Christian Scott or the rest of the Mets outside of Brandon Sproat. And we don't even know what he is. He hasn't come up to the major leagues yet, but they are not producing these pitchers at a quick rate here. And what we saw from Christian Scott, whether it was because he was injured, I just didn't see enough to be like, you know what? You can let some of these free agents go at the end of the season and we'll just install Christian Scott into rotation. Like, I just haven't seen enough from him. Even with David Peterson, I don't know if this is the David Peterson, right? It's like he's Jekyll and Hyde. Every year it's something different. He's got the new hip now, so he's looking a whole lot better. As I put in here, new hip, new Peterson, 9-1, 2.75 ERA, 81 strikeouts in 98 and a thirds innings pitched. But I don't know if this is the real David Peterson or not. That's the thing.
Well, we don't know, but he's earned the shot to be a starter next year, and he might stink like next year. But he's penciled into that rotation now. I mean, you can't have this good of a season and then the Mets say, "Oh, we're not sure this is the real you." He's on the low, he's cheap, and he's one of the 5 guys next year. Him and Sanger are the 2 guys, and then it's TBD, TBD, TBD. Sproat is nowhere near ready. I don't think he's been terrible in AAA for the most part. I don't think we're going to see him in the first half of next season, maybe later in the season next year. And Christian Scott, you worry a little bit with the UCL. Like, he's no lock to be part of this rotation either next year. And I'm sure they're going to be very careful with his innings, and he's going to throw 4 innings, and then they're going to pull him. And it's so frustrating. I get why they do it, but it's infuriating as a fan to watch these guys go 4 innings, 5 innings, and then they're pulled because of innings limits. So that's why you worry about penciling in Christian Scott even into this rotation. So we have to take a look at the free agent market. I don't know if the starting pitching market is that great this offseason. There's a lot of older pitchers, but they're going to have to do a deep dive. And again, this all goes back to trusting David Stearns. He'll find those diamonds in the rough. He's found a bunch of them with the Torrens, with Iglesias, with trading for nothing for Phil Maytone, who's mostly been incredible, for getting some of these guys on the cheap and bargain hunting. He's hit home runs across the board to the point that we forget Joey Wendell happened. Like, remember early on in the year how pissed we were about Joey Wendell? Well,
Zach Short.
They were terrible. Zach Short, you almost forget he exists. And while they end up in the Braves, it's like Jets always go to the Patriots. At some point they fizzle out and they might have a nice stretch. One guy who hasn't is Travis d'Arnaud, but Travis d'Arnaud had plenty of chances here and didn't produce. So that's not one you get that mad at. But most of these guys he's hit home runs on, so I trust he'll do it this offseason as well.
And I think he has to continue the same strategy he has been doing for as long as he's here with the rotation, is that you sign these guys like Minaya and Severino on these show me something deals, short-term deals, because as we've seen with pitching nowadays, that these contracts never work out. Outside of Garrett Cole for the Yankees, is there any other contract that has really worked out long-term deal? You can look at Rodon. You can even look at the short-term ones with Verlander and Scherzer, DeGrom. They're just not working out because these guys are getting hurt so much. So you have to do these short-term deals and try to figure out a way in developing these pitchers, whereas you can bring these pitchers up and you own those guys, but you can spend your money on position players when the time comes to spend.
Yeah, I'm looking now at the free agent starters just for fun. Might as well, since we're talking about it. Kikuchi is a name that intrigues me. Mm-hmm. Again, another lefty. So if
he's been on the radar for a couple of years now for the Mets.
Yeah, there's a lot of the older guys. I would stay away from Charlie Moore, and he might be retiring anyway. I would stay away from Patrick Corbin. Corbin Burns was mentioned in the chat. He's a very intriguing name. He might cost a lot. Max Fried, I'd be shocked if if the Braves don't try and bring him back. Jack Flaherty is a very intriguing name. Shane Bieber, but a lot of injury concerns there. Andrew Haney, I'd probably stay away from. Alex Cobb. And then after that, it's a lot of the fringe guys. Walker Buehler, Martin Perez. Nick Pivetta is an interesting name. Only got 7.5 this year. He could come on the low, but after that, it's a lot of the lower end guys. But those are the key guys. So really Kikuchi, Burns, Flaherty, those are kind of the names you're looking at.
Yeah, I know Carlos in the chat has been talking about Corbin Burns for, I'm going to say, close to 2 years now. So that's really the only guy that I would be willing to spend some money on. But obviously, you got to be cautious because there's injury history as well there. I would probably think that they're going to be looking at trades as well. I mean, Freddie Peralta from Milwaukee. He likes his Milwaukee guys, as we've noticed in his start here in his tenure, or some of the guys even that he brought up when he was in Houston as well. So we'll see where he does when it comes to putting together this rotation. You know who we forgot about? We forgot about Paul Blackburn. He's coming back.
He's kind of forgettable.
He is forgettable, but he's going to be a part of the rotation because he's signed.
Yeah, no, I'd be shocked. I mean, listen, he's got what, 1 more year left?
I think so.
Yeah, that's kind of annoying. I mean, he's fine. He's been fine. I shouldn't say that. I mean, if he's your 5th starter, fine. I would still hope to have like 6 starters, so you have a little depth. And listen, they might go 6 starters because with Senga, they hate pitching him on normal rest because he's used to the 6 days in Japan. So they might have Blackburn as a fringe guy, or or maybe Christian Scott is a fringe guy, and with Scott's inning limit. So you have to really plan for 6 guys. You have to plan for 6 solid starters. I forgot that Blackburn was signed, so he'll probably be your 6, but that's fine. Listen, he's mostly been good. He had a weird stretch when he came here where he played only teams that he's used to playing. He played the Angels. He played his former team, the A's. He went to Colorado. It's like, can we get this guy not to face a West Coast team? Like, it was unbelievable. His Mets start was very bizarre in terms of facing AL West teams and facing his former team. That doesn't happen normally. So I'm intrigued to see him, but he's your 6 innings, 4 runs kind of guy, quality start here and there. So anything better than he's nowhere. He's your 5th or 6th starter and nothing better. And hopefully he pitches well down the stretch here because every start is important. And coming off that injury, like, I hope he's locked and loaded and ready to go. We can't have a start like he had to the A's where the game, here's the first pitch and the game's over. That can't happen. So Mets starters have their mojo right now. They've been really good. So Blackburn tomorrow is going to come out to the 6th side, Toronto, and shut down a really good Blue Jays lineup. I know the Blue Jays record's not good, and you can't look at records come September because we know spoilers well. Cough,
You
cough,
can't look at records
Miami
with the Mets.
Marlins. Yeah, they lose to bad teams in September. The Marlins have haunted us in the past, so don't overlook teams like the Blue Jays this week. They got a good lineup.
Yeah, they really do. The only guy that I don't want to see start like for the rest of my life is Tyler McGill. Figure out a way to make him work in the bullpen, or it's time to ship him off. I mean, and this is for any Mets fan that is doing a ticket plan. If you get the Saturday ticket plan, you're going to see Jose Quintana and Tyler McGill for most of your time going to these games, because that's what has happened to me. And that's why I've had such a bad record watching these Mets play. Thankfully, Jose Quintana had a good Saturday. But for the most part, they have not been good. Thankfully, Jose Quintana's turned it around. But Tyler McGill, it's again, the same thing over and over with him. 4 runs. I mean, he couldn't hold the lead that they had given him. Like, just throw him in the bullpen. He's good for 2 innings. Give him in the bullpen.
This is why I tell you, get tickets. Do the Jake Brown approach. Get your tickets day up, because 1 day of, the weather. 2, the starting pitcher. 3, the lineup. Like, if DJ Stewart's in the lineup, all right, I'm not going to get a ticket today. So always at the last. I get the perks of you get the playoff priority, which is that's the key. Is you get priority. You get like 1 playoff game, right? Per round.
No. You get. It depends on how many. Like, if there's like 20, 40, and then the full 80 games, and I got the quarter strip, but those tickets cost more than the entire season ticket package that I paid for. So I'm not going to any playoff games unless I hit the raffle once it goes live online for everybody else.
Yeah, that's what I'll be going for the raffle. Well, assuming I come back to New York for that, and they won't even be home unless they're the first wild card.
Yeah,
or if they make the the NLDS, obviously. But we'll see. It's getting close. But yeah, Blackburn tomorrow. Big starts for him. I agree. No more Tyler McGill. We've seen enough out of him. If he goes elsewhere, it's great. Fine. Who cares at this point? We've seen him over and over and over again. And one guy stood the test of time, and David Peterson, and changed from a guy, we didn't know what we were going to get at him, to now getting a quality starter better every single damn time he pitches, where Tyler McGill is just such a mixed bag. And, he had a decent game against the White Sox. Congratulations. I could throw a decent game against these White Sox at this point. So the Tyler McGill experiment needs to end.
Yeah, it's just like the DJ Stewart experiment. It's time. It's time to end it. Kodai Senga, he's possibly coming back. There's a little bit of optimism there that he'll come back before season's end, and hopefully he does, because that would be a huge boost to the rotation. He even talked about, if you needed me in the bullpen, I'll come out of the bullpen. It's like, no, we'll just throw Tyler McGill in there. Don't worry.
No, he's got to start, and if he's ready, they have enough relievers at this point. Like, I would love if you can activate him that Wednesday against the Braves. That's when he's first eligible. I hope he could work his way up where he could give you 5, maybe 6 innings if it's not a high pitch count against the Braves. And if you're rushing him and he gets hurt, well, he's got the whole offseason to recover. And you hope he doesn't, have a serious arm injury. But my hope is that Wednesday he's available. Get him here. That series is monumental. Not only is it monumental because you got to win the games, but like the tiebreaker is determined by who wins that series. So, say the Mets win 2 out of 3, and the Braves sweep over the weekend. Well, if the Mets end up tying, they make the playoffs over the Braves. So they already have the tiebreaker over the Diamondbacks. They got the tiebreaker over the Padres.
Yep.
They win that series, they have the tiebreaker over the Braves. So that means if they're tied with any of those teams, they get in over them. So that is a massive series, and that game could determine the season. So Wednesday or Thursday, I'd love to have Sank. If he goes Thursday and then you get in, slot him in game one of the playoffs, baby. Like, that's it. And you don't want to look too far ahead, of course, but we're just playing the guessing game here. I'd love to see him as the starting pitcher that Wednesday or Thursday down in Atlanta.
Yeah, and you saw they already, kind of swapped around Sean Manaea, and obviously they did it with Luis Severino earlier on in the season strategically to have these guys pitch a little bit more. I assume that they're setting them up for that series as well. And, you look at Philly as well, and I don't want to say that that's in reach, but if this team, which has 7 games against Philadelphia coming up, but if the Mets can get to within, what are they right now? They are 7 games behind the Philadelphia Phillies. If they can gain, let's say, 2 games in this first series coming up against Toronto, you go into Philly, 7 games left, 5 back. I mean,
think if they won a day, they 6. The graphic, it would have been 6 out, 7 to go. So you're saying there's a chance.
I'm not saying that's 100%. Obviously, obviously the road goes through that wild card, and that's the best chance. I think someone said the best chance is taking over the Diamondbacks, who've been struggling, and that makes sense as well. But you got to take what games that you can, and they're not going to completely win 7 games from the Philadelphia Phillies. I'd be shocked if they did that. I would love it, but I'd be shocked. But you got to keep your eyes out on all these standings. That's for sure.
Yeah, it's crazy watching the schedule and watching every day, because it came from, a couple of days ago, it was just watching the Braves score. Now you're watching the Braves score, the Diamondbacks score, the Padres score. And yeah, in the back burner, I'm checking the Phillies. I just want to get in. It would take a pipe dream. I know there's some people who think, to keep playing like this, you could beat the Phillies. Beating the Phillies, essentially to do that, you have to beat them basically all 7 times, or at least 6 out of 7. And it's hard to see, but you never know. Crazy. The Mets blew 7-17. So anything can really happen. The Diamondbacks are up 11-5 right now. So that one is pretty much over. Thanks, Justin Verlander, once again for nothing, giving up 8 runs tonight. I mean, the final slap in the face from Justin Verlander. The Mets are paying his ass. And of course, he gets absolutely rocked tonight in a game where the Mets needed him to do well. So the game and a half back of the D-backs, tied with the Braves, 2 back of the Padres. This week, the Padres and D-backs, I mean, lucky them, off Monday and Thursday. God forbid the Mets ever had a week with, let alone a month with 2 off days. And then the D-backs have the Rangers and Brewers coming up. The Padres have the Mariners and Giants coming up. So intriguing games. They both have 2-game series, which is very bizarre. And the Braves have the Reds for 1 and then the Nationals for 2. So you can't really look at who they're playing, because in the end, the Mets have to go up to Toronto and take care of business. And then they got to, me in the crowd waving, cheering up here in Philly. I've heard the fried chicken and donuts on the third base side is pretty good in Philly. Obviously a Philly cheesesteak as well. And I don't know, maybe you could give me better Philly Stadium food recommendations, but it's going to be loud. It's going to be sold out. And that is going to be playoff-like baseball over the weekend in Philly.
I'll have to ask Mrs. Subway to Shea, but there were some fries that we have from there. I don't know if it's Chicky and Pete's crab fries or what they're called. I'll hit you up with those when I find them once we get off the air. But they were
crab fries. That's what someone told me. Yes, crab fries as well.
Yeah, those are really good. Before we wrap up here, what do you want to see record-wise from the Mets on this road trip? 3 in Toronto, day off, 3 in Philly, and then they don't have a day off until they finish their homestand, which is against Philly. I think it's Nationals, then Philly for the 4, and then they're off, and then Braves, Milwaukee to end the season.
Yeah, I mean, I think realistic is 4-2. I'd love to see 5-1. I'd like to see a sweep of the Blue Jays, beat the teams you should, and then go up to Philly and win 2 out of 3. But I think 4-2 is just a little bit more realistic right now. Toronto's lineup is really good. You don't know what you're going to get out of Blackburn. And then the Phillies are first place team, and that place, like I said, going to be absolutely rocking, sellout crowds. Tickets are pricey. I looked up tickets like $80 to get in. I'm like, oh boy, hey, mom, how you doing? So it's going to be a tough week. So I say 4-2 would be my prediction, but my hope would be 5-1.
196 of you guys in the chat. Thank you for joining the show today. Anyone else want to leave their thoughts on what the record should be for the Mets? Let us know. Eddie Presti saying, hey, and shout out to you and Jake. That series in Atlanta will determine the season. Let's get revenge for 2022. Absolutely. I mean, it's put up or shut up, right? Like, that is the series. You can even look until Milwaukee too. Milwaukee spanked us at the beginning of the season, sweeping our home series to start the season. That's a big series as well for the Mets. Every series is big, no matter, even the national series. Got to keep winning series, got to keep winning games. Carlos Ramos saying, Ant, you're making me feel something here, bro. Something to think about. Anything is possible, but it's been a great year all around regardless. We are much closer than we think. Absolutely. Blunt Thoughts saying 5-1. He thinks is going to happen here. Herb Busan saying Rosie Phillies have the exact same issue. Their offense disappears as well. Why do you think they are under 500 since the All-Star break? Yeah, the Mets too. They got to figure out this offense, and we could talk about Lindor all we want, right? Being that MVP, Mark Vientos, his sidekick right now at the top of the lineup, but a day that these guys are not playing well, or a series that they're slumping, Nimmo and Pete Alonso have to step up their game. And if they don't, this team is going to struggle getting into the postseason. But hopefully, we are just a step closer. Right now, tied for that third wildcard spot. Like Jake said, have the tie break against the Padres, have the tie break against the Arizona Diamondbacks. They have to win that Braves series, as was said from Eddie earlier on. That's the big series there. Take that series. You got the tie break there as well. Get a little bit of payback from that 2022 series. But Jake, awesome always talking to you, my friend. Always a pleasure. Let everyone know what you're working on. You got another podcast coming out because the Jet season's about to start. Let everyone know what's going on.
Yeah, so I do have a new podcast. Everyone thought that's like my job. Like, it doesn't really pay. Like, we need sponsors. So, like, I'm still looking for employment. So, if anyone in the chat is hiring as well, I was laid off by the New York Post last week, or 10 days ago. Ended a 5-year run. So, unfortunate, but I'm excited for what's to come in the future. But this job market is rough right now. So, I'm living in Philly, like I said. The Sick Podcast, Sick Media, I do 2 shows now with them. I do Mets Magic, the Sick Podcast, Mets Magic. Just look for it on YouTube, wherever you get podcasts, at Sick Pod Mets on Twitter, and at Sick Pod Jets on Twitter, starting Tuesday. Well, I did a preview show Friday by myself, but starting Tuesday, post-game show, Jets 49ers, Tuesday morning. Jets Flight Club is the name of the new podcast. Nice. So if you're a Jets fan, someone already tweeted me, you already broke the 2 rules of Fight Club. So it is Flight, not Jets Fight Club. It is Jets Flight Club. Me and Eric Coleman, former Jets safety, he will be doing that with me, and we'll special Jets gets, and I'll do stuff like this. I think we're going to try to do live. We're going to do people in the chat. I need to do more of that, so I'm going to do more of that. So if you're a Jets fan watching or listening, Jets Flight Club, Jake Brown, Eric Coleman, at Sick Pod Jets, Sick Podcast, Jets Flight Club on YouTube. Go subscribe, smash your thumbs up, comments, and then I'm doing more on TikTok and all that, all my socials, Jake Brown Radio.
So awesome having you on as always, Jake. And you do the live takes as well. Can't forget about those live takes. Sometimes I get to join you on there, and we go back and forth on what the Mets are going to do. So make sure you guys download that app, the Live Takes app. You could hear me go against Jake, and Jake has a lot of guests on, so it's a lot of fun doing that as well. You can follow me on X, Instagram, and TikTok at Subway to Shea, as well as at Ant Rivera 86, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, if you want to listen to the show, and on YouTube. Make sure you like this video. Make sure you're subscribing to this page as we go through the rest of this season and get ready for what is hopefully Mets postseason berth. So we will keep on track of that. But for Anthony Rivera and Jake Brown, this has been the Subway to Shea podcast. You guys got to believe in these New York Mets. And as always, let's go Mets.